recognized what I've been doing in the space is around education, around, the projects that I'm building and creating, the brands that I'm supporting as an ambassador, as well as those that I'm helping, as an advisor or strategist. So it was just really exciting. This is a space that I'm enjoying, and it's changing every day, and which makes it exciting. You can't get bored.
Yeah, yeah. You are. I think I should start from the beginning because I just pretty much jumped into it. Okay, so like you already know, we are a community of African designers, but there are some. We've had different people from all over the world join us, but predominantly we're African fashion creatives. So you have illustrators amongst us, you have designers, you have pattern makers, you have textile designers and vendors, people generally working in the fashion industry. We started out in 2020 as a group for just fashion illustrators because I am a fashion illustrator. But with time, I'm just 45 members. But with time, we've morphed into much more. And we're over 1,000 now. We're growing slowly. We should be much more, but slowly and surely we'll get there. Now back to you. You are an enigma of sorts. You started out in medicine. What I read from your bio, you started out in medicine. You actually set out to be a medical doctor, and stopped after your master's in clinical psychology, and went to FIT. You were born in Jamaica, but you moved to America with your parents at a very young age. How old were you when you moved to America?
You know what? I was a toddler.
Okay. Okay. So, and you apparently your parents must have been well off, because I know that studying medicine anywhere in the world anyway is extremely expensive.
Oh, I
You
had a
know,
scholarship. I was on a full
what?
scholarship.
Okay. Definitely
Yeah.
very brainy, definitely very intelligent. So, so you started out in medicine, and then what happened? Why did you switch to fashion?
Yeah, great question. And, even with undergrad, just going back to the point about my parents as immigrants, what was instilled in us was the power of education. And it was something that we took very seriously. And I knew at a young age that I needed to get a scholarship. There were six of us in our family, and my parents really were, just intentional on making sure we had good grades in order so we could qualify for scholarships. So that's how I paid for undergrad for the most
Okay. Okay. So why fashion?
part. Was,
Was there some sort of
again,
a
able to get a scholarship. So in terms of my pivot, I call it a divine download. It was, one day I was walking to class and I had this vision that I was going to help people through my love of fashion. And I was going to the University of Connecticut at the time, and I had looked into fashion design prior to accepting the offer from the graduate program. I also had gotten an opportunity to go to FIT as well on a scholarship, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. Also, Parsons had offered admission as well, and several other schools within the fashion design space. And this was something that I decided to do in between my year off between undergrad and graduate school. I decided to apply to fashion design school. And, but when I got my offer from the University of Connecticut, and this was a journey that I had been on since high school, it was a dream come true to get a full scholarship to this very competitive PhD program. So I went ahead and accepted that offer. But when I had this divine download, is what I call it, when I had this divine download in terms of how I was going to help people, because that's always what I wanted to do. And it was going to be somehow through this love of fashion I had. It was really a leap of faith that I decided to take to pursue that
Mm,
pathway, not knowing where it would lead me.
mm. Incredible. And it seems to have paid off, you know, that
Yeah.
leap of faith, that gamble.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. And one of the reasons why I launched Rain Magazine and why I wrote the book Unleash Your Supernova, I think, in my experience, the highs have been accompanied with lows, equal lows. And what I'm grateful for is that I didn't give up. I continue to just put one foot in front of the other. And I think that's what life is about. And that's what I like
Mm,
to inspire individuals to do is if there's something in you, if there's a burning desire in you, it's in you for a reason. And it's in you to serve
mm,
you, but also others. And it's so important that we hold on to that and we, take the highs and the lows as they come. And it's one of the reasons why I continue to do what I do, just to inspire others to do what they love to do.
mm. And um, you do so many things. You're an actor, you've done stage, you are a poet, you're a designer, you're a techie, you're an editor-in-chief of a magazine that has interviewed the likes of Kendall Jenner and Nikki Hilton, prior to the crazy fame they have now. You have an award winning, as far as I'm concerned, even though they say it's an award nominated podcast. How do you do so many things? I almost kicked myself in the face when I found out that you have 4 kids. 4 kids. And you look like this? How do you look like this 4 kids?
I know, I appreciate that. It's all been one thing at a time, one step at a time. I've been planting a lot of seeds over these years, and some of them are coming to fruition at the same time. And as I mentioned, I was led to the space of fashion, and I think that if we follow the that tug, that pull that's within us, we may call it intuition. I refer to it as a divine download, whatever it is, and things happen for us so much more easily. And when you read those things out, I'm like, whoa, how did it, what? I did all that. How do, I still forget, because I just do it and I'm
Mm,
like, okay, next thing, do it, next thing. But it's important to, for me to take a moment and recognize, because I do feel that similarly to what I wrote in the book, Unleash Your Supernova, we all have the potential to do whatever
I
we
forgot
want
to
to.
I forgot to add author. I forgot to add author.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the reasons why I wrote Unleash Your Supernova is to teach people how they can tap into that infinite potential and infinite ability. And one day I was like, I've always wanted to act. Let me just audition for this play. And then, I'll be like, okay, I want to do this. Let's just try it. And, there's no harm in trying it, right? And then if
Mm,
you love it, you can keep up with it. And the other
yeah.
things, such as poetry and the interviews that I've done with those various, personalities such as Kendall Jenner, Mark Cuban, Priyanka Chopra, I have a true curiosity and love for people. Like I'm a
Mm,
storyteller. I love stories. I wonder when I meet people, well, what's their story? How do they get here from there? And then what can I learn from it? And what can I share with others? And so I think that
mm,
lends, what I've done in the magazine space and what I've done in the podcast space, and then choosing to write about this adventure and these stories and how others can learn from them. So I think, my own curiosity, my own desire to help and share and educate, and finding these different tools and platforms and how I can do it. And if there's a new technology, then I'm on it. I'm like, ooh, can I use this to help? Can I
mm,
use this? Can I use this? So Rain was, me venturing into the digital world, creating a digital magazine. Eventually we decided to go to print, but initially it launched exclusively as an online magazine, as one of the first of its kind at that time. When I launched my podcast, my very first podcast was many years ago, but I didn't decide
mm,
to commit to podcasting until about 4 or 5 years ago. But still early in the space. If we're going to say, the maturity of podcasting is still, I think it's still a young industry, relatively speaking. And then what I'm doing now within Web3 and blockchain and AI and the metaverse, we're still so, and being a futurist, being someone that's looking out ahead. Rain is about the future of fashion, culture, and technology. So for the last 15 years, we've been looking ahead. What's coming? And what are those
mm,
qualities will deem an individual or a product or brand to be that next big name? So I enjoy
mm,
this sort of look ahead, while appreciating what we've learned in the past to create the best present experiences.
Amazing. Um, Tell us about your NASA experience. Okay, fine. Let me start with this. Your chief metaverse architect of lore. What does that title is heavy. What does it mean? What does a chief metaverse architect
I
do?
love that.
And
Thank you.
lore is lore your startup?
Lure is a startup. It's founded by two individuals that have a very strong history, in corporate, in consulting, in lifestyle, in the lifestyle industry, and has a passion to bring access, sustainability, and interoperability to this Web3 metaverse space. And the initial MVP is a hyper realistic district called Soho, that is
Mm,
inspired by the real Soho, New York neighborhood
okay.
with a little fantasy. And so
Mm,
individuals can purchase real estate in the form of storefronts and buildings, and they will also own the land within this digital environment. And then they can engage with their audience within this digital and immersive environment. And so Lore is focused on bespoke brands, luxury brands, and individuals that are looking to bring a unique, high quality experience to their customers, and doing it in a very accessible way. And so, as a chief metaverse architect, I work with the design studio in terms of the inspiration and detailing and quality of the actual immersive environment that we're building. I also do business development and looking at key partnerships and relationships that will bring value to both sides that are participating, and also closely work with the founders on strategy as well.
amazing. So basically, I thought you were the founder of Lore. I thought you owned Lore.
No, it's just a coincidence that it's that Laura also is part of my Lorraine and my name. But no, I am not the owner or founder.
Okay, amazing. So, apparently, your startup was selected for a NASA incubator. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yes, sure. So I was invited to apply through a colleague, and at first it was out of the blue. I wasn't really sure what the accelerator was and what I could contribute and what I was going to get out of it. So I did a lot of research, and what I found I really liked, and I thought it was a great segue to dive into this really this incubation period where I can look
Mm,
at futuristic technology, what I'm doing in Web3 and the metaverse, and my love of fashion, and how can I create impact by
mm,
bringing all of this together. And so I applied to the program. I was one of 32 participants that was accepted, and during the program we had to come up with an idea in which we would fuse the NASA technology with a commercialized product to bring that forward.
mm,
And what was born during that time period was the House of Nova, which looks at data,
mm,
AI, and fashion in the form of couture fashion, and how I can create the future of couture. And so, using blockchain, using AI, using data, we can move the space forward. So, the House of Nova right now is materializing in the form of imagery as phase one. And we will then continue to create experiences, digital experiences that will bridge the physical and digital world, and that will then lead to physical products through on-demand purchases of digital assets.
incredible. So basically, would you say that the point at which you intersected or merged fashion with technology was when you started the House of Nova? Was that how this whole
Oh,
interest in?
well, actually, no. I would say the first where I merged fashion and technology was with Rain magazine, actually. Um, Creating this
Okay.
very fast-forward magazine as a digital medium at a time where digital magazines weren't common. They barely existed. It was called e-zines, and it definitely is not what it is now. So I would say that was my first merge. I always saw technology as a tool that can move fashion forward. And so why not create a digital publication that can reach anyone from anywhere in the world? And so that was, I would say, my first embarking of and fashion, and then moving that into uh, the idea of tokenizing fashion. So wanting to bring together the blockchain with couture, and then moving that into more advisory, and then launching an NFT collection under raindrops.io, which is a very fashion forward story of a character that's as an NFT. And so you learn about her and her world through NFTs. And then here we are, from there, 3 months later, starting the NASA accelerator program. So the journey
Mm.
started a little while ago. But if I'm gonna say like active fashion design and AI, then yes, the House of Nova this past summer through the NASA Tech program.
Incredible. Which brings us to the subject of AI and
Yeah,
fashion. I'm an illustrator, and I honestly have very mixed feelings about AI as when it relates to fashion. I'm like, okay, fine. So you have these, I see these incredible works, and I have to ask you, what app do you use? You seem to have mastered the art of using AI to create these incredible images. So I see an AI, and I usually can very easily spot them. I can see an AI generated image, and I'm like, all right, yeah, I would have appreciated this more if this was created by a human hand. But the
yeah.
fact that it was created by software, you know, whatever, I expect nothing but, perfection. So how is it a threat, to traditional people like fashion illustrators? What is it in the first place, and how does it help fashion? I understand when you talk about, trend forecasting, and AI helps with that, but actually doing the work, I'm
Yeah.
like, is there a place where we get to draw the line? You know?
I actually had the same concerns about AI, and I still have a concern about AI. I think we should always challenge and question technology, as it's brought forward. So we keep the human in everything we're doing, and we don't harm our future as we are excited about these new tools and innovations. So I think it's valid to have those concerns. I think it's great that you're having this conversation. And I urge you to continue to have these conversations, because the technology will absolutely impact us as creators and as designers and illustrators. And now the question is how. And so by getting used to the technology, learning from them, there are many, Dolly is a very popular one. It's an open AI. There's Midjourney, there's Dawn AI, there's Lenza AI. These are just a couple. Move.ai is another new one. There's so many tools out there. And the first thing is just doing the research and Googling what are they, which of them appeals to you, and which can enhance your workflow. So for me, I'm using
Mm,
AI to enhance workflow. I'm using AI to create content. I'm using AI for research. So these are different ways that I'm using it. And then for storytelling. So I'm playing with video animation as well. And so a
mm,
lot of us don't even realize that the everyday programs we're using already has AI embedded in it. And let's just start with Google. It's creating a search
mm,
based on words. Canva,
mm,
which is a very popular program, and they've continued to
mm,
update their software. So if you go on Canva today, you can do some of the things that ChatGPT does. It's pretty incredible. But they had already had
mm,
AI in software. Adobe has AI. So there's, again, so many tools that we're already using that have been under the radar as
mm,
it relates to it being an AI tool. Now, as it relates to illustrators, I think, illustrators fall into the category of artists, and they're creating
mm,
something. A lot of illustrators are now using CAD. So where does this divide between CAD and hand? I see the hand illustrators being valued as bespoke artisans, similarly to where you have hand painted garments and hand embroidered garments. These are going to be skill sets that are in the near future not prevalent, because our students are now being trained on computer aided design. So then as an illustrator,
mm,
you have to decide, do you want to be in the bespoke category, or do you want to be in the digital, the digital realm of illustrators and designers, or do you want to find a way to combine the two? So I say learn
Mm.
about the technology, look at how it can affect your art in and of itself or your workflow. Can it help you get your art out there faster? Can it help you get your product out there faster? Can it help you be more efficient in what you're doing on a day to day? Maybe you use AI to get customers and you're not using it within your art. Maybe you're using AI to create your marketing collateral and you choose to only use your hand skills or your design skills through CAD. So I think it's the first step is, learning about it and then recognizing it's here. The train is in the station. It's not going away. And then do you want to step on the train or do you want to watch it as it leaves the station? And all of that is valid. All of it's fine. But I say the first step is education. And the tool that I'm using right now, I use several, but the tool that I use most is Midjourney.
Incredible. So I wanted to ask, um, I know that when you want to create these images in AI, you use prompts.
Mhm.
Um, I've tried with Midjourney, well, the free version, and yeah, I used a couple of prompts. I wasn't very happy with what came out. So, what prompts do you use that creates those incredible images?
So in terms of the prompts, they vary. I will change a prompt from image to image, and then I use multiple ways of getting the final image. There's a blending tool. You can bring outside imagery in. You could bring text in. You can bring colors in. So there's different ways of doing that. But I also have been using it for about 8 or 9 months now. And so the tool has learned from me training the tool. So each designer, illustrator, user, prompter is training their own, I would say like their own platform or channel, or they're it's creating you're creating your own style basically. So it's really it's an amalgamation of about 8 or 9 months of training the tool that allows me to create what I want to create. But the first time that I used it, it was okay, and then I just kept playing with it and playing with it and playing with it, and it's like learning a new language, and the more time you put into it, the more proficient you get.
Incredible. So, what you use is basically DALI or Midjourney.
I've used several AI programs depending on what I want to create. And if I'm focused most on existing photography or if I'm wanting to blend multiple images, and it also depends on the output. So if I'm looking for, let's say, to do a portrait, that's a different app. If I'm looking to create an object, then that's a different app. And if I'm looking to create a video or an
Mm.
animated avatar, those are several apps. So, I would say
Okay.
Google you know, and there's a few there's many actually on your Apple iPhone. So that's a great place to start. Lenza
Yeah.
is one, Portraits, Dawn AI is another. You have Dolly, which is an open AI source. You have Midjourney, which is an open AI source, and there's so many others. And so I would say just start with looking up, just do a Google search. What are some AI tools for artists or designers? And then start playing with them, or go on YouTube and watch a couple videos and see which ones, you want to start with. And then give yourself the chance to get used to the tool. Because the first time you play with it, you may not like what you get. And then again, as you continue to use these AI tools, you become more proficient and you can create shortcuts when you go from one app to another app.
Hmm. Incredible. That brings us to the subject of AI and copyright infringement. I'm quite sure you heard of the Meta Birkin's case.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I'm not surprised that Birkin won. I was actually surprised that Mr. Rothschild was able to get away with launching that collection when it first came out. I remember when it first came out last spring, because Birkin is such a known brand and it was obvious that these were bags, even though they're digital bags. It was,
Hmm.
to me, if I was Birkin, I would have been, ringing the alarms as well. So I'm not surprised of the verdict. Now, does Mr. Rothschild have some valid points that he makes as it relates to an artist and the liberty that you have around artistry. And yes, he does. And so I would say I don't think that it's because this is a new area, a new realm as it relates to the metaverse and NFTs and Web3 that we take advantage of that because the laws and trademarks aren't there yet. And, take the likeness of a brand and or name. I mean, that was, if he named it Meta, I don't know, Meta Roses, he may have won the case and created these bags. But, to take a brand's name and to bring it into the digital space, and leverage the legacy of that brand without any repercussions, I think it's something that an artist just needs to think about. I don't think that's something that we do now with our CAD tools. And so why would we
Mm,
now do it with, bringing in an immersive environment or on the blockchain? And so as it
mm,
relates to AI and copyright infringement, yes, AI, the tools like ChatGPT and some of the open source programs, they're pulling from existing data. So it is up to the artist to choose if they want to use a specific styles, let's say, for example, a Picasso or a Da Vinci or something that's not in the public domain as inspiration
mm,
as they're pulling into the AI. And then it would be again up to the artist to, through a lens of creative direction, to say, okay, this is an original work, or this looks too close to the style of the original inspiration. I'm going to use it or I'm going to not. And we know that within art, everything is replicated. I mean, Picasso is Picasso because so many people came after him to want to, replicate something that looks like a Picasso, or a Da Vinci or a
mm,
Michelangelo. And so if you're a really great artist, you're going to get copied. So that's something that we know, right? However, with the AI tool, I think it's up to the discernment of the designer or artist that's using it, the prompter, to choose how closely do they want their end product to resemble the original artist style. And if it's someone that's in the public domain, that's one thing. But if it's not, it's something to really consider. And then these tools are limited as well. They're not exact, they're not perfect. And so when you're pulling
mm,
in, it's not going to be exact or perfect. It's like a sculptor. They get a piece of clay,
mm,
and then it depends on how good the sculptor is and what the end result of that clay is going to look like. So this isn't an automatic thing. Just because the tool exists, you're going to have an exact replica of a Da Vinci painting. That's not the case. You may have a
mm,
hint of style of it. And it really just depends on the individual using the tool. How great of an artist, how good of an eye do they have? How well have they trained the tool to get the end result? And if the better they are, the better the results. And I don't think that if you're bringing in, so right now in copyright, if you change, let's say I have this pattern shirt on and I'm inspired as a designer with this pattern. And if I change it 20%, I'm no longer infringing on the copyright of this pattern. And so that's something we can use as a model for AI. If the image or the art or the inspiration is no more than 80% of that original, then it's not infringing on the copyright. So we do have laws in place that we can apply to the new space.
incredible. Which brings me to my final question before we enter the
Mm-hmm.
second part of this, which is the one-on-one, which is where we have one-on-one between community members. So recently we had in Nigerian um, creative. He's more of a graphics guy whose work went viral. Um, he, all right, whose work went viral because he incorporated AI into his work and then created this runway of elderly citizens
Mm-hmm.
who were wearing, you know, on the runway.
Uh, Repeat that
Um,
because
and he went viral he had, you know, um, all kinds of people. He he literally was everywhere. He was on BBC. He was, hello, Nova, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. It was breaking up before.
Oh, oh, okay.
I think it's breaking up again.
Like I said, network is really, really bad right now.
What was that? I'm sorry, it was still breaking up.
So I think I'm back.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay. I was scared for a moment there. All right, so yeah, network is pretty bad right now, but I'll make do with what I have. So basically, the Nigerian designer Mike Afeboa, um, he's not even a designer. He's more like of a how like it now. He's a graphics person. Incorporated AI into his work and created this runway of elderly people who were wearing really stylish clothing, and he went viral. And we had people like Ruth Carter connect with him. That's the costume designer behind Black Panther. And he was on CNN and he went viral. And so how can a Nigerian designer incorporate AI into their work in such a way that it benefits them beyond the hype of going viral?
Yeah, I think that again, looking at those areas that I mentioned before, as are they looking at AI to improve if they're a fashion designer creating clothing, are they looking at it to improve the workflow, sustainability, transparency, ownership? Do they want to look, if they're an artist, an illustrator, do they want it to similarly use it for their art in a way where it allows them to create faster, or their workflow or their messaging and or communication with their community? And then they'll be able to narrow down the AI tools. I think right now, what you can do with AI as an illustrator is use it for marketing collateral, for storytelling, for getting the word out about your services and how you're different than possibly the AI that's being produced. And that's a way too. I think you should embrace your skill and your craft. And if you want to, stick with the hand drawing, that's special and that's unique, and that will continue to become more rare and more special. And that's what you can leverage. And then maybe use the AI
Mm,
for the collateral that you're creating to tell that story, or using it for research to stay on top of trends, to look at what brands are hiring, things like that. So, yes, you can use the AI directly to impact your
mm,
art and create art with it, such as what I'm doing. But I'm also doing it for content creation. I'm also doing it for research. I'm also doing it for workflow, using it for workflow. So I think all of these areas are how a designer can, implement it today. Now, in terms of going viral, we're still early, and there's still, that gentleman had a use case that really touched people, because when you don't normally see the senior group category in fashion, and you barely see models of color in fashion. And so he put together two
mm,
profiles to create a high fashion runway show that was very realistic in terms of its imagery. And he used AI. So he, had to train that tool to give the level of quality that he had portrayed, but he also had a really strong story behind it. And so again, it
mm,
comes down to being authentic with who you are, what messages you want to bring forward, and how do you want to use the tool to your advantage. He used the tool to visually tell a compelling story, and it resonated with a lot of people that allowed him to go viral. And so if the goal is just going viral, there's many ways you can do that. But if you want to, be authentic and create a sustainable way to use the tool, then it's just a matter of starting. Like, do your research, as I said, create a list of the tools that appeal to you, watch a couple videos, read a couple blogs about them, and just start playing.
incredible. Right. So before we move to the second part of this interview, I want to find out if anyone has any questions for Nova, particularly concerning AI. Does anybody have any questions? So I want to assume that nobody has any questions for now. Right. So Nova, I had the rare privilege of interacting with you and you wanting to you know provide a platform for community members to shine. I want to put it that way. Expose them to opportunities, have them, be seen, have their work be seen. Um, how do you intend to do this with the Fashion Collect Niger?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I also want to say that because we're so early in this emerging tech environment as relates to fashion, and how fashion is colliding with NFTs and colliding with blockchain and colliding with AI, just having those extra skills are going to differentiate you in the market right now. And so that's also something to
Mm,
keep in mind, is look at the tools, get to know them. What are the areas in Web3 that you're interested in? And if it's AI, that's great. Get to know, you know, at least one tool very well. And you could
mm,
use that to leverage yourself, because there's going to be, in the very near future, companies and or projects that are going to be in need of your skill set. So I just wanted to share that. In terms of a platform,
Mm,
currently I have Rain Magazine, as I mentioned, and Rain is about the future of
mm,
fashion technology, and it's RAINE. And we're always looking for new talent to feature. So we featured illustrators in
mm,
the past, we featured designers in the past. Actually, every issue we feature talent in our fashion section. So that's just
mm,
an opportunity that exists today, where you can submit your work to our editors, and that's editors plural, editors at Rain Magazine, and that's Rain with an E, magazine.com, and submit your work. Tell your story. Why do you think you're the next big name? Why do you think people should know about you? And we choose our stories based on the quality of imagery and the quality of the story. And so that's
mm.
open to our next issue that we're releasing is our fashion issue. And so we do have a lot more stories during that issue that we're publishing. So this is a great time to submit. The other thing is we are working on a platform
Okay.
specifically for designers that are using these emerging techs to create their work. And that announcement will be coming in the next 3 to 4 weeks, where you will have the opportunity to, again, have
Mm.
a platform, showcase what you do, and leverage that for, growing in your career or gaining more clients or the projects, helping you on the projects that you're currently working on.
Mm. Incredible. So basically, before I go ahead, basically you have to put the email address that you want community members to send their work to. Maybe you could type it into the comments section. But basically, we have to, be trained in this new technology to remain relevant and to be on this to be able to be on these platforms. Basically, is that what you're saying?
For the new platform, for Rain Magazine, you can what you're doing now, you can submit your stories for, absolutely. And then for the new platform, which I'll be announcing soon, and happy to share that with you as well, so you can share it with your community, that you'll be able to submit a new form of fashion art to be considered for that platform.
Okay, incredible. You said something about me having to create a form, kind of like a Google form where we kind of, are able to assess the kind of members in the community and their needs. Can you expatiate on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So you have over 1,000 members, and let's say 80% of them are fashion designers and 20% of them are photographers, just for example. And those needs are going to be different than someone that is, let's say, a makeup artist. And once
Mhm,
you have an idea of who your actual demographic is within the community, then, myself or anyone else can collaborate with offering services that can benefit the community. So if it's just in general knowledge around Web3 and the metaverse, then perhaps there's a workshop series that we can collaborate on. If it's how
mhm,
can, there's a podcast that I'm launching very soon that is specifically around AI and creativity. So this is something that it's going to allow your community to learn around about these tools and how they're impacting the industry and how they could take advantage of this. But there's a lot of things that can be
mhm,
done around the demographic of your community. So it's just really a survey of who's who and what problems do they want to solve for themselves. If it's they want to connect with brands, well, maybe there's some sort of workshop or event where brands are present, almost like a fair or like a recruiting fair or something like that. If it's learning about
mhm,
Web3, then educational. If it's awards and recognitions, well, maybe there's contests that they can apply to, or magazines they could submit their work too. So it just depends on what are the pain points they want to solve today. And if you're able to assess who is within the community, then those needs can be more addressed more easily.
incredible. Does anybody have any questions? Winnie, Tammy?
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So it's about. I've heard a lot of a lot of artists talk about AI art and how to them it's not real art. It's more something like typing a command into Google and basically bringing up. It's they compare AI art to typing the question into Google and then going on Google Images, and then basically using the results as your art. So what do you think about that? Because from what I know, you type in a command or prompt on the application and you can mix, so based on what you type in or based on the command that you give it, it generates images which are sometimes combined together and produce the art form. But I would like to know your opinion on that, like what the
Yeah.
artists are saying.
So I think when NFTs first came out, I was definitely on the fence of, oh, that's not real art, it's just digital art, and similarly, I was questioning the validity. And we've seen the acceptance and adoption of digital art, and digital art has been around for a while. Now we have a tool that can allow individuals to create digital art without actually being artists. And that's what happened with NFTs. And it didn't matter if you were an artist or not, it was what the customer saw as valuable. And just like a couture designer versus, someone designing for Fashion Nova or Forever 21, individuals may not value the clothes that are being sold through Forever 21 because it's not made the same way that it would be made from a Dior, craftsman. And so I think it's really up to the customer to determine the value. And as artists, for us to really pay attention to how this technology is impacting us, because it's going to continue to impact us. So to deny it as art, that's fine. That's up to that individual. That's subjective and that's their opinion. But what is art? Some people think a painted rock is art. Anyone could pick up a rock in the garden and paint it, and people are selling painted rocks. So it's really a subjective observation. But as a designer, an illustrator, or an artist or creator, I urge you to learn about what's coming, to learn about what's here, so you can position yourself accordingly. And it doesn't mean that you need to be the next AI designer, AR designer, Web3 designer. If it makes sense to you, then yes, adopt the tools in what you're doing. But what it does allow you to do is position yourself. And if you want to, as I mentioned earlier, continue to create in the traditional way, that's going to have value as well. So then how do you tell that story to your customers and to your clients? Because that's equally as valuable. So it's really knowing your customer and understanding what's coming so you can position yourself.
All right, thank you. I really like that response. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I just want to add, a traditionally trained designer that graduated from a top fashion school, and I've made clothing by hand, and I'm using AI to design fashion. I think that how I design with it, my own perspective is very different from the person next to me and how they will design with it. And how I will use the end result is going to be different from someone else. And that's what's going to distinguish the art moving forward. It's who's actually the director of the train, who's actually driving the car, who's actually, captaining the boat, to then say, oh, this is very artistic. But I've created things that are extremely inspiring to me, to where I want to bring it to life in the physical world. And so as a designer that really appreciates physical things, this is a way to allow me to create some things that I may not have created without the tool.
Okay,
Incredible.
I
So
think I was gonna say I think that makes sense because in the end, as an artist, when you no matter what you create, it eventually comes out in your own style. So it ends up being yours instead of just being something generic. So I think it makes sense, and it really does depend on the person that's using, the person that's creating the art. So yeah, thank you for that.
Like,
So one thing I've had to take away from this that is kind of changing my view is the fact that each one of us brings our individuality to the AI itself. So what I create with AI won't be the same thing that you will create with AI or the next person. It just makes the workflow, much easier.
Absolutely, because the AI is being trained by you, and what you're approving and what you're editing and what you're upscaling and what you're blending is teaching the AI for good or bad. And so you will have to retrain it if you want to get a different style from the AI. So sometimes I want to switch styles, I have to retrain it in order to get the original style that I wanted, maybe that I used months ago, or a completely new style that is not based on the current style that I'm using. So there is a method and a process and a learning curve. And the sooner you start using it and the more you use it, the better you'll get it.
Incredible. Does anybody have any more questions?
I
I
also
thought
wanted
Ayomi
to
will have
ask.
a question.
I also wanted to ask, what are
Okay,
some
Tammy,
apps
go ahead.
what are some apps that you recommend for us to use? And not just there was a trend going on a while back on Instagram, not very long ago. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the app, but it was basically people putting their selfies and it showed their pictures in different artist styles. But I mean something not just for fun or just for pictures like that, like something I can use on the desktop maybe and go deeper into AI art.
Yeah, so I think that's going to depend on if you want something that's free or paid. And so there are apps on your phone that will allow you to create imagery, and each of those apps have a different set of rules. And then there are your open source AI platforms such as Dolly and Midjourney, to name a couple. And then there's video animation tools like movie.ai. And there's plenty others as well. So I would say first decide on, what you want to do, like what is the end result. I've used the portrait AI tools and they're great as well. So what is the end result that you're looking for? And do you want an open source AI, and or do you want something closed, like a privately owned platform that is, for use through your iPhone or through your browser? And then look at the style of art that they're producing. Look at the features that they're offering you. And once you start playing with it, you're going to say, oh, I really like this and I want to continue, or I don't like this interface. And so, no, this isn't what I want. But you have to play with it and use it. I know with Midjourney, they give you 20, or at least that's what they used to, 20 images as a starting point. But it's going to take a lot more than that to really understand the tool and to develop a style with the tool.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions before we close it out? I know we have a few more minutes.
I do have a question, but I guess you already kind of answered that with Carrie's question. But mine would be with AI in the market, and I know that in the future there's going to be a lot more AI art and AI software. What would the future of art in general look like? Like if you have a picture in mind.
What would the future look like? So I've heard stats that it's kind of scary, depending on how you look at it, that 90 to 95% of art in the very near future is going to be AI generated. And what does that mean for traditional artists? Like I have paintings up that I've created. I love couture, the art of fashion. So what does that mean? I think you're going to have your premium products are going to be more valuable because these other art forms are so accessible now. So it's also looking at positioning yourself as how can you protect your art form, your style. Maybe you have a specific style like Andy Warhol and it's hard to copy that. And that's what you really hone in on. Or maybe there's a certain technique that you use in your illustration or your fashion, and that's going to be really hard to replicate with AI. So let's say everything I design has a red yarn woven through it. And that's going to be hard for the AI to duplicate it in the style that I've created it as a designer. So I think it's going to force artists to really differentiate themselves and like think about how they're uniquely positioning themselves, and or to really focus on their community, because their community may not want AI art, or their community may really love AI art, and maybe the art that they love is all futuristic, or maybe the art that they love is super abstract. So I feel that it's going to push us as artists and creatives to stay relevant within the art space. And then also, I feel it's really important for artists and creatives to have a voice. To these are technologists that are creating these tools. They're not artists that are creating these tools. So as we use it, we need to vocalize what we want to happen with it, what we like about it, what we don't like about it. At the end of the day, art transforms, and we as humans are meant to create. So if we're not creating anymore, what does that mean for humanity? And so I believe that it's super important not only for us to use the tools to advance our businesses, our art, and our workflow. It's also important for us to have a voice in front of these technologists and these tech companies that are pushing this forward, and question, are they pushing it forward for profit, or are they pushing it forward for the good of humanity?
All right, thank you. That was really insightful. Yeah, it was definitely something that I've thought about, and it was really scary to think about. But the way you said it, like it could be something that we may, look down on, or it could be something that could actually push us and help us better our art. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. I think there's time for maybe one more question, and then I think that would be the end of the talk for today. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have just one more thing to add, very
Sure.
convenient. So, I was thinking about the morality aspects of AI because what you said about the plagiarism, and it really depends. If you take something as your source of inspiration and you change it by 20%, then it's not actually plagiarism anymore. I feel like that makes sense, but as an artist, if someone uses my work and it still looks like my work, I feel like the morality aspect is not something, the impact to the artist is not something that's talked about a lot, because a lot of artists talk about how, like with this trend that just went on Instagram with the, I can't remember what Lensa, I think that was, yeah, Lensa, where people made their selfies in styles of different artists. A lot of people came out and said that their art style or their artworks were stolen and used for this thing. So I feel like it's a very, 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 very blurred line between inspiration and plagiarism, and that's really one of the issues, because I don't know, I love the pictures that were coming up until I heard the fact that, oh, a lot of artists' work was stolen. So I didn't even want to put anything there because I thought like either my work would be stolen or I'll be stealing someone else's work. So it kind of killed the vibe for me. So what is
Yeah.
your opinion?
So
Is,
from a
is there,
yeah,
sorry,
that, that's a great question. For
mhm.
me, I created my own style, so I don't pull from other artist styles. But I also think that in terms of my final work, in terms of like, I may start with an artist style to see, well, what does it look like? So, um, testing the tool. Is it that I feel even accurate? And like I said, a lot of times it's not. And it depends on what we're speaking of. If it's an artist uses this certain sort of brushstroke and that's really obvious in the AI interpretation, that's one thing. But I also feel that, you know, this technology is pulling from existing data. And if it's blending it with, I don't know, 100 points of data, um, it's going to be up to the person that chooses to release the art if they feel that it's original enough. But there is going to be technology coming that's going to help with regulation. And I think blockchain is going to become even a bigger conversation piece where you can have your style minted and protected. So this is all coming down the pike where, let's say, if I want to pull from your style, then I may need to pay you, to access your style of art. And as a creator of the art myself, I'm also concerned with IP around what I create, because I'm putting a lot of time into what I'm doing. So if someone chooses to just copy it, then I would be concerned as well. And that's with anything. If it's a pair of designer shoes, if I decide to do a red bottom shoe, and Manolo is the signature for the red bottom shoes, and I'm like, I just want to do red bottom shoe because I like the color red. Do you know what I'm saying? And if my shoe became just as popular as Manolo's, um, what happens there? Does he own the right for a red bottom shoe? So I think it's going to be up to the artist what they're choosing to release as their own artwork. And then also the transparency of the artist, giving the credit where the credit is due. And we're seeing that with, other art forms, maybe for videos or music, where you're at the very least crediting the originator of the art. And if the originator is asking for money, if you're using it in a commercial way, if you're making money off of their art, then they may decide to get some remuneration from that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like that obviously that would be a great solution to the issue. But it's just now, right now, it doesn't seem like it feels like it's more of an option than something that you have to do basically. So it would be great if they can find ways to protect the artist's rights and their work more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm not sure if it's live now, but what will be coming down the pike is the sources that the AI is pulling from. So that may be more for, let's say, a chat GPT, but it may also be implemented in some of your AI art programs as well. And then we may see again, if there are 100 sources, is it really now, contributing just to one artist and one artist style? So it's going to be interesting to see how the space develops.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that.
Mhm.
Thank
Well,
you.
I appreciate you joining the conversation and your questions. And I really love what the collective is doing, and the demographic of the collective as well. I just love the fact that so many of you have come together under the umbrella of fashion, and happy to be a resource for you as well. You can find me at Rain Magazine, of course, Nova Lorraine on Instagram, and on the real Nova Lorraine on Instagram, Nova Lorraine on LinkedIn, Nova Lorraine on Twitter. I check my LinkedIn probably more often in terms of DMs, but you can find me on those various platforms.
Thank you. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hi, thank you for.
My network threw me out.
That's okay. We handled it. We were going through questions. It was good.
It was really insightful, really, really insightful. You've opened my eyes to the power of AI, and Lorraine, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can. I can hear you if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
I can hear you now.
All right, amazing. Well, thank you so much for
Can you hear
having me.
me?
I can hear you, and I just want to thank you again for having me and allowing me to share with the community, the Fashion Collective community.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and enlightening us on the fact that AI is not here for us. It's not here for our jobs, but to make things easier for us.
Absolutely. And then as it relates to jobs, jobs are going to change. And that's why it's important for us to stay on top of this and to see how we position ourselves with the technology that's being released. So, again, we could choose to use it or not. That's fine. But we should at least know about it and the impact it's going to have. And so that way we can better position ourselves as artists and creators.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you. All right, take care.
All right, let me let you go now.